Good morning. This is class number 167, The Voice of Spirit. And I'd like to start by quoting John 4 in verse 24. It says that God is spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. And to me, worship is when I'm thinking about God, when I'm talking about God, when I'm contemplating. That's a little deeper than just thinking, because thinking takes you down a certain kind of a road, and then you start contemplating on that road. And that's all spirit. There's nothing material about it, nothing mortal about it, which gets us into what we call creation. And if we're thinking about the fact that creation is spirit, the universe is spirit, the world is spirit, everything is spirit, then this concept of the world is what Jesus meant when he said, I have overcome the world. And just like I never understood what Joel Goldsmith meant one time when he said, when Jesus said, I have overcome the world, he said, had he? So think about it. He hadn't overcome the Sanhedrin, and he hadn't overcome Rome. He hadn't overcome the Pharisees, the Sadducees. He hadn't overcome all of that. He still had to go to the cross. He still was going to have to go through all that trial and all that kind of stuff. And I started to contemplate that. I started thinking about it. And then I said, oh, I know what he meant. He meant he had overcome those concepts. He realized that those were all mortal concepts, working backwards. A crucifixion and death and burial is a concept. That trial is a concept. People judging him and trying to throw him over a briar cliff and all this kind of stuff. He realized he had overcome those concepts. He knew that they were nothing more than just the beliefs that men had developed over eons of time. And he knew Rome was a concept, just like we know that the United States or the world itself, that's a concept. That's why he said, my kingdom is not of this world. That's how he could say, I've overcome the world. I've overcome these concepts. So then we get into how we got away from the world being spiritual. And we look around and we go, well, what if the world is spiritual, why is it that I keep trying to deal with it, and I keep trying to take scripture and try to overcome these concepts, blasting at it and looking at it and trying to tell it that it's not real. Then you look around and you see people like doctors and scientists studying sickness and disease. And they're never going to overcome sickness and disease by studying it and trying to come up with some kind of way to do away with it, because there's nothing to do away with. And it takes a whole lot to come into that. Clara and I were talking about that kind of thing yesterday. It's the deep meditation and contemplation of truth that builds a receptivity, that builds a consciousness that understands. Only thing I'm suffering from are the only things are my concepts and my beliefs, and the beliefs of people that fill up what we call this conceptualized world. So let's go back to the beginning, and let's understand this. Now, since there is no such thing as time, because there can't be if in the idea of omnipresence, meaning there's always now, and since there's no time, there is never a beginning. So the first step for me was understanding that I needed to substitute a word for beginning. And so I took the word principle for beginning, because the principle doesn't change. And so we know that the principle of mathematics does not change no matter how many times people apply numbers and their numerical values incorrectly. The principle never changed, and it can't change because it's now and has always existed, because the principle is God. And so, therefore, nothing is out of place. But there are still people who will say, who will use grammar incorrectly, people who will say 2 times 2 equals 5, people who won't even have any idea what mathematics is. But that principle expressed itself through somebody and revealed itself as math computations, as languages, all this kind of thing. And speaking of languages, just think about it. It says, well, because man decided that he was going to build a scaffold all the way into heaven and never be, this is how we're going to deal with the flood. And you think about it, would God really flood out his entire universe and kill everybody on the earth and only keep Noah, his wife, and children, and 2 of each animal? So there's got to be something really, really spiritual that we missed in that situation, because that was what I call overcoming the concepts of the world, the concepts of good and evil, the concepts of man being bad, man being good. And so, therefore, we need to understand that all we're ever doing is realizing that God has given us a receptivity. We're receptive to receive the kingdom of the word, the kingdom of truth. And it's truth that has already overcome the world, the issues, the uglies, the errors, the sin, the sicknesses, the diseases, the poverties, the lacks. All of that's those are non-items, non-entities. And so, therefore, as we realize that we are divine principle being expressed, we'll have an easier go of building this receptivity, building this consciousness, or not so much building the consciousness, realizing the consciousness that we are. And so the principle of creation is always the substance, and it has not changed. Not one iota. It has always been, always will be, and it has expressed us. And our job is to glorify God, or to glorify the principle. Every time I say 2 times 2 equals 4, and I understand beyond just memory, then I am glorifying that principle. Every time I say there is no such thing as sin and sickness and disease, and I understand it, not just saying it, but I understand it from a consciousness standpoint, I am glorifying the principle and putting myself in a situation to allow this principle to express what I call, I don't want to say miracles, because to me it's the perfect outpicturing of what God is and what I truly am and what you are and what everybody on the planet is. You know, when we start thinking about creation, we're not talking about something starting out and then evolving over time and getting better and better as we go. We're talking about a principle that was always there, and it starts to express itself. The earth was without form and void. And to me, this is what I call the womb of creation. In other words, you have this void within you, and it is a womb, and it is there for lack of a better term, creativity to be expressed out of this principle that you are, which is God. And so the womb of stillness or silence is where ideas are born, where ideas come forth, just as a baby is conceived in the darkness of the womb. And this, I call it the silence, the void within. Divine mind conceiving ideas. And this idea and the manifestation is one. Spirit becoming visible form. This is principle, and it does not change. Spirit conceives and expresses itself, and it looks like you and me and everybody else on the planet. And as we continually contemplate the fact that this spirit is always the same and never changing, these ideas come forth and glorify God. See, in this silence, the voice speaks, the voice of spirit. And it's really a very soft, inaudible, yet audible. Now, that sounds like an oxymoron. It's inaudible, yet it's audible because you hear it. It's like a whisper. It's kind of hard to describe it, but you know it because you believe that it's there. You know it, and it's different from anything that you ever really experienced. You have all kinds of feelings going on the inside of you, but this one is so distinct and so different and so quiet. And it brings with it a conviction. A conviction that not only have I heard it, but a conviction of this is. It's just exact. It's always reminding you that it is now. This is it. And you keep hearing it, and you keep feeling it. In Isaiah 30 and 21, it says, and you will hear a word behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it. And all of you have heard it. You've always known the way to go by way of this little silence, this little voice of spirit within. And it's so quiet. And it feels like, for lack of a better, it's like something breathes within you. I always wondered what Goldsmith meant when he said that it's like you take a breath, but it's not like taking a breath, but yet it's like taking a breath. It's just a little, not even like an exhale. It's something that is so distinct, you know that it's, for lack of a better term, foreign to every other kind of feeling that you usually have. It's not this emotional thing. It's not this oh, wow, and you're euphoric over it. Actually, it's soothing. It's peaceful. It almost makes you ask, why did I think of this? I know that I didn't have any reason to think this. Because of all that's going on around me, there's no way I would have thought what I just thought. Here's an example. Yesterday, I got a break somewhere in the middle of the day after lunch and I forget when it was, but I said, I had jogged and I had done my little floor exercise. And I said, you know what, I think I'm just going to lay down for a little bit and just I'm going to meditate and I'm just going to be quiet for a little while. and Cynthia was sitting on the sofa, and she was watching television, and I just decided to go lay down. And so I'm laying there, and I'm just kind of thinking about peace. I'm thinking about how quiet the house was, how still the house was, and I felt like I was drifting off, and I was about to go to sleep. And just as soon as I got to that little point where, you just kind of drift off, a voice said, "It's all right." And and it woke me right up. And I sat up, and I said, "It's all right." And it was just like a quiet whisper. And I sat right up. It was a quiet whisper. And I said, "Wow." And it was that little light feeling on the inside, like a breath, but it was not. It wasn't a burn. It wasn't an overpowering thing. It was just a nice little quiet whisper. And I said, that's the voice of spirit. And it reminded me of when I had to go to court about a year ago or something like that. And I was concerned, and I went out jogging, and my mind was not on going to court. I was out there jogging, and I'm thinking, I and my Father are one. And I heard this little voice say, "It's okay." And I said, "It's okay." And it was that same feeling and that same whisper, that same little voice that I heard say, "It's all right." And I said, "Oh man, this is just like when I read the story of Joel Goldsmith when he came to the hospital and his father was under an oxygen tent, and they had basically given up and that he was going to transition. And Joel said he stood there in front just looking in that window and just looking at his dad, not knowing he couldn't do anything about the situation. And he just stood there, and he said he just felt a stillness. And as he was standing there, this whisper said to him, "Man shall not live by breath alone." And he said he just felt like it was all right. And when he felt that and it was all right, he said within minutes, he saw his dad wake up, and he signaled for the nurses and what have you, and had them come and take the oxygen tent away. And I don't remember whether it was within a day or so or whatever, but he went home. And I said, "Oh, man," I said, I really wish that this would happen with me. I remember reading that and saying, I wish that this would happen with me. But when I was jogging and the little voice said, "It's okay," I didn't think of Joel. But yesterday, when this voice said, "It's all right," I knew that was it. I said, "What's all right?" And it was like everything. This is a spiritual universe. And in this spiritual universe, you have overcome the world. There's another story where Joel was traveling to a small place in South Africa, and he stopped off in Johannesburg to get a smaller plane. And when as he got ready to change the plane, they had a little kid there that would take bags out, not a little kid, but a young'un, and he would take bags out to the plane, to the small plane. And so Joel said he saw the bags being taken out to the small plane. And then when they got ready to go, he went out and got on the smaller plane. And so then they flew, and when they landed, in the small, I forget where he was going, but the smaller town in South Africa, he said that when he went to get his, by the time he got off the plane and came into the airport and went to get his bags, and his bags weren't there. And he said, now, wait a minute. Where are my bags? And he kept looking for them. He couldn't find them. And so the people that greeted him at the airport said, well, Joel, we'll just take you on to the hotel. And he said, but I don't have any clothes. I have no change of clothes at all. And they said, well, we'll just have to, those were the students from the Infinite Way. And they said, well, we'll just take you out in town and we'll buy you. You're going to be here a week. He said, we'll just buy you enough clothes to carry you through the week. He said, surely you'll get your bags by then. So they did. And he said he went on and he was doing his classes, changing clothes. Everything was okay. He said, but now the week's about up, and he still didn't have his bag. And so he said, said, now, wait a minute. Nothing is ever lost in spirit. These bags are spirit. Everything is spirit. And so, therefore, I have to have my bags. So the problem has been I've been wondering about material luggage in a spiritual universe. I've been concerning myself with material luggage and material clothes in a spiritual universe. And he said with that, he got that little light glow of it's all right. He didn't say he heard a word, it's all right, but he just knew that that was the way and the walk in it, like Isaiah 30 and 21. He said when he awakened the next morning, the idea came to him to go downstairs or something like that. And when he went down, they brought his luggage. And they said his luggage had been taken to the wrong hotel and had been sitting there on a carousel for a week waiting for somebody to claim it. He said, this is after all these people have been telling him, well, maybe that young kid stole your bags and went out and sold them, sold clothes or whatever people do. And he said he just would not accept that. But when he was sitting up in his bed getting ready to go to bed that night, getting ready to go to sleep, he said, how can there be material luggage and material clothes in a spiritual universe? He said, and that was just enough that he could rest. And when he entered into that rest, that receptivity zone, he said, it dawned on him, all was okay. And I believe that's what happens with all of us. When we are able to realize this is a spiritual universe, that's when we hear the voice. But trying to take Scripture and apply it like a poultice to a sore or something that's of discomfort to the body, that doesn't work. You're back in materialism. And the body is not material, it's spiritual. It's hard when you see that, okay, as you get older, vision is going. You lose teeth. Your joints start hurting, all of this kind of stuff. But as long as you're looking at vision and teeth and joints and bones and skin and all of that as material, then you're going to continue to experience the beliefs of the world. But the moment it becomes crystal clear, I am principle. I am spirit. This is the spiritual universe, and I'm worshiping the principle. I'm worshiping God. Every time I recognize and acknowledge and accept the fact that this is a spiritual universe, I am acknowledging God. I am worshiping God. And the words I'm speaking, they are spirit and they are life. Let's think about Samuel and Eli. And Samuel was brought to Eli so that he was young. He was going to be living down at the church with Eli. And Samuel was laying in bed, and he heard a little voice call him. And he got up and went in to see Eli and said, yes, what do you want? Eli said, I didn't call you. And so then go back to bed. Samuel went back and got in bed, and the voice called him again. And he got up to see Eli. I can't remember whether it was 2 or 3 times, but at some particular point, Eli recognized that Samuel was hearing the voice of spirit. And he said, the next time you hear the voice, just say, speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. In other words, I'm hearing this, so go ahead and speak. I remember Abraham. The Spirit came within and said, walk perfect before me. And, it seems like the Spirit expands, or the voice expands the message after we become confident and we get used to it. There's a difference. Look at Peter on the rooftop. You see, the first time, let me go back. The first time Abraham hears the voice, it's like, get out of your country and go somewhere different. Go. I'm going to lead you somewhere. Now, the next time it's, Abram, be perfect before me. But it came in the vision. But a vision doesn't necessarily mean that it's a picture. It's an image. It's an announcement. And it says, be perfect before me. Then it comes back and tells him all about how he's going to have a child. And how all of the nations of the earth are going to be blessed by him. And it gives him a name change. He goes from Abram to Abraham. And now let's look at Peter on the rooftop. The first time, I know this was the voice that spoke to Peter. And when Jesus said, whom do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? And they were like, some say that you one of the prophets come back, John the Baptist or what have you. So, well, who do you say that I am? Remember now, Jesus is referring to himself as a natural man, the Son of Man. And Peter says, his name is Simon. He says, you're the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus says, and I'm trying to tell you that flesh and blood didn't reveal that to you. Why? Because it's a spiritual universe. This voice revealed to you that I am the Christ. It's that still small voice that becomes flesh. Now look at Peter on the rooftop. He's gotten his name changed from Simon hearing to Peter, a rock, and Jesus is up on this rock, this feeling, this voice, this realization. I'm going to build my church. I'm going to call you out. And so that you will be able to go out and glorify the Father. It's that still small voice that becomes flesh. That's what John 1 means when it says, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among them. This voice within the Virgin Mary. You're blessed. You're the Holy Mother of the Son of God. This voice is going to manifest itself as a son that we call Wonderful, Emmanuel, God with us. And once this child is born, he will save the world from their sins. What sins? They're listening at the wrong voice. They're listening at their erroneous feelings. They're listening at the beliefs of the world. But this child is going to reach you and teach you how to distinguish or to determine the difference between the voice of the world and this spiritual voice that is within you, that's silent, that's soft, that little whisper that becomes flesh. You see, the letter kills. Peter, on this rooftop, here it comes, a vision. Why? Because all of these years that he's been with the Christ, now this receptivity has developed within him. This grace is in him. And what happens? He sees all manner of beasts. He's open to anything that's coming from God. He's going up there to pray. He's going up there to meditate. And what happens? Rise, Peter, slay and eat. He says, oh, no, he's slipping back now. I've not eaten anything that's common or unclean. And this voice says, what God has cleansed, call not common or unclean. This still small voice, this quietness. You see, the letter kills. You just reading books and reading the Bible and trying to say what they said. I mean, how many times have we heard people say, whosoever should say to the mountain, be thou removed, and you tell all this sickness and disease, move yourself, and it doesn't go? Because there's no conviction behind it. Why is there no conviction behind it? Because this little voice has not spoken within to bring the feeling of the conviction. And you see, faith comes by hearing, by hearing this word, this still small voice. Every time we hear this voice, we're glorifying God. This little voice is silent. And I think sometimes we expect, if we're looking for the voice, we expect it to give us a paragraph or to give us a whole litany of words when it could just say, it's all right. It's okay. And so, what is our real work? It is to still the thought and hear and feel the voice. That's our work. To still the voice. I mean, to still the thoughts. That's why he said, behold, I stand at the door and knock. And if you open up, my Father and I will come in and sup with you. Now, the sup means what? To eat. That again, take no thought for your life. Why? Because if you're receptive, you will receive the kingdom. It's God's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. And what do we say the kingdom is in Aramaic? Wise counsel. The word. The counsel, the counsel of God. That is, if you don't, you're going to follow the voice of worry and fear. And then you're going to be thinking about it, contemplating the result of if I don't get this fixed or if I don't do this, and then before you know it, your day is wrecked. You twist it all up inside. You're crying, and you don't know what to do because you're thinking, you're eating. You're eating the voice of fear and of worry. That's not what we're supposed to be eating. We're supposed to be eating the bread of life. Remember, Jesus said, I am the bread. My Father and I will come in and sup with you. The voice, which is your voice, by the way, will speak within because you are one with God. And when this voice speaks, you eat the bread of life, the meat that the world knows not of. When worry and fear thoughts come, we ought to immediately begin to contemplate words like peace. My peace I leave you, my peace I give you. We ought to start thinking he is able to keep at perfect peace whose mind is stayed on thee. And those other thoughts, they'll be coming for a while. But you ought to immediately start thinking, I am receptive to spirit. Just thinking, not just saying it, Start thinking about what it means to be receptive to Spirit, what it means to be receptive to the still small voice. Just start thinking about it. Then you start thinking about statements that it is God's good pleasure to give me the kingdom. I am the child of God. Upon awakening in the morning, upon somewhere throughout the day, and before you go to bed at night, you just make every effort to remember, I am the manifestation of God's being. I am life, God expressed. I am the Word made flesh. I am incorporeal. I am not material. I am spiritual. My life is hid with Christ in God. For in Him I live and move and have my being. I am in the secret place of the Most High. And not only is this true of me, but it's true of everyone, regardless of any appearance to the contrary. The thought is that idea, those words, that contemplation is forcing thought to leave. Errant thought, error thought, sinful thought is forcing it to leave. It's going out. It's stopping. That's what's meant by speak to the mountain. That's what's meant by remove yourself to yonder place when I am still, when I am listening, when I am totally caught up in this too shall pass. Why? Because I am receptive to hearing the still small voice. And I will hear it because He has promised that it is His good pleasure to give me the kingdom. He has promised before they call, I have answered. My consciousness is filled with the truth. God's Spirit fills all space. As I remember hearing and feeling that voice of, it's all right, the one that I heard yesterday, and I keep hearing it, that's what I think Goldsmith meant by the thunder of silence. Even though that voice thunders, it's not loud. It's not audible, yet it seems audible. When I say it's all right, what do I mean? It means it's all right because there's nothing wrong, because I'm only dealing with now. There is nothing wrong. I am only dealing with now. It's always all right. Like the lady said, all is well when she went back to the prophet. All is well. This that's going on out here, this appearance, all of this stuff, this is the result, the effect of beliefs that have nothing to do with divine principles. They have no substance to foundation to hold them. Let me close with page 31 from a book I have called The Master Speaks. Consciousness is God, your consciousness and my consciousness. One infinite, indivisible consciousness which appears individually as your consciousness and mine. This is God. It is the activity of your consciousness and mine which results in the fruitage of our harmonious daily experience. We cannot sit with a dull, sleepy, or thoughtless mind and believe that there is a God power acting somewhere for us. God power is the activity of our consciousness. This God power appears as the activity of our consciousness. God power is our consciousness at work, and it is our consciousness when it is imbued with truth and awareness of truth, and not merely, and this is very important, the declaration of truth. Many people have come and said a lot of things, made the same statements that Jesus said, made the same statements that the prophets said, made all of those, and nothing really happened or changed, because the conviction causes us to rest in the fact that the principle has never changed. And the principle is, I will walk in them, I will talk in them. They will hear me. They will know me. My sheep hear my voice. They know me, they obey me, and they will not follow the voice of a stranger. These errant thoughts, these beliefs of this world, these are strangers, foreign to us. And as we wait and wait, I don't care how long it takes, by just continually thinking, we will hear, let there be. Thinking about God, listening for the voice, that creates the receptivity. Thinking about God, contemplating what God has said, living in that particular consciousness, realizing that this receptivity is what we call a void. And in this void, the idea is conceived, and the voice speaks. Let there be. Let there be light. Let there be a firmament. Let there be. It's the same voice. Let the dry land come forth. And let there be a greater light and a lesser light, luminary. Let the earth bring forth. Let the trees bring forth. Let there be vegetation. Let there be marine life. Let there be creeping things, animals. This is still all peaceful. And let there be man. Let man have dominion over all of the earth. Just think about what it feels like. I have dominion. Why? Because this voice is my dominion. I am divine principle. I am one with God. This voice speaks. I hear it. And my faith is the substance of my experiences that are harmonious and will always be in the earth. It's all right. This is the voice of spirit. Amen. And so it is.